This war started on February 28, 2026. United States and Israel versus Iran. The battlefields are in Tehran, the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf. Africa is none of those places. Africa has no soldiers in this war, no warships, no bombs, no vote on whether it started. And yet today, right now, 45 million more African people are being pushed toward hunger because of it. Food prices in Somalia have risen 20% since the fighting began. Ethiopia cannot get fertilizer for its planting season. Sudan's food aid is arriving 25 days late, and in countries across the continent, currencies are collapsing as the price of imported fuel climbs toward levels that ordinary households cannot absorb. This is Africa's war, and nobody chose it. The fuel shock. Here's where it starts. Fuel. Africa is a net importer of oil products. That means almost every country on the continent, except a handful of exporters, buys its fuel from somewhere else. And the somewhere else, for most of Africa, is ultimately connected to the Middle East. When the Strait of Hormuz closed and global oil prices surged above $100 per barrel, that shock did not stay in the Persian Gulf. It moved. Within days, fuel prices at petrol stations across Nairobi, Harare, Lagos, and Addis Ababa began to climb. A P journalist photographed a service station worker in Harare filling car tanks on March 5th, 4 days after the war started, as prices reset upward. The photo ran globally. The story behind it barely did. Nick Headley, an energy transition research analyst at Zero Carbon Analytics, told the AP directly, "Africa is a net importer of oil products, meaning it is heavily exposed to shocks like these. Rising fuel costs feed quickly into broader inflation and reduce household purchasing power." In plain language, when the price of fuel goes up, the price of everything goes up. Because everything in Africa, food, medicine, building materials, water, is moved by trucks that run on fuel. The fuel shock is not a background economic story. It is the story of millions of households suddenly unable to afford their week. Let's go country by country, because the picture is more complicated and more revealing than a single number. Nigeria is Africa's largest oil exporter. It ships 1.5 million barrels of crude every day. So when oil hit $100 a barrel, a price 40% above what Nigeria's government budgeted for, you might expect Nigerians to be celebrating. They are not. Because here is Nigeria's paradox. It exports crude oil, but imports refined fuel. Its refining capacity is limited. The Dangote refinery, Africa's largest, is still ramping up. So when global crude prices surge, Nigerian petrol stations still charge more per liter because the refined products they sell are priced against global benchmarks. Multiple states in Nigeria this week reported retail petrol prices breaching 1,000 naira per liter. The windfall at the government level has not reached ordinary people. It may not for months. Kenya. No oil exports, heavy import dependence. The Kenyan shilling has weakened significantly against the dollar since the war started. Bloomberg Economics named Kenya among the worst-hit sub-Saharan economies. A weaker currency means every imported good costs more in local money. Food prices follow fuel prices with a lag of 2 to 4 weeks. That lag is ending now. Kenya's planting season has already started. And farmers in Limuru, photographed by the AP just 2 days ago, are applying fertilizer to their fields. A P journalist, Jackson Njehia, captured the image on March 25th. A Kenyan woman named Elizabeth Wangwa, working her land with a bag of fertilizer that cost more than she planned in a season she cannot afford to waste. South Africa, the continent's most industrialized economy. The South African Reserve Bank is now facing a decision it did not expect to face this quarter: whether to raise interest rates, which would slow an already fragile economy, in order to fight the inflation the oil shock is importing. Capital Economics said this week that South Africa's regulated fuel price tracks Brent crude directly. The oil spike threatens to delay rate cuts and raise consumer prices via transport and food. The Africa Energy Chamber summarized it plainly. For oil importers like Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Senegal, and Rwanda, higher fuel costs, wider current account deficits, and growing pressure on foreign exchange reserves. The fertilizer choke point. And here's the rabbit hole. The story inside the story. The thing that makes this crisis not just painful right now, but potentially catastrophic for the rest of 2026 and into 2027. Fertilizer. About 1/3 of all fertilizer shipped globally passes through the Strait of Hormuz. According to the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Gulf region exports 1/3 of all globally traded urea, the most important nitrogen fertilizer, and around 1/4 of global sulfur, which is a key ingredient in phosphate fertilizer production. Both are now sitting in storage on the wrong side of a closed strait. According to data from the University of Texas at Austin, cited in CNBC's reporting this week, over 90% of the fertilizer consumed in sub-Saharan Africa is imported, mostly from outside the continent. 90%. Africa does not make its own fertilizer at scale. It depends entirely on global supply chains, and those supply chains run through the Strait of Hormuz. Raj Patel, a food systems economist at the University of Texas, told AP and NPR this week, the loss of Gulf exports creates an immediate global shortfall with no quick substitutes, and there are no strategic international fertilizer stockpiles like there are for oil. That last sentence is critical. When oil supply gets disrupted, countries can release strategic petroleum reserves, emergency stockpiles built over decades for exactly this moment. There are no equivalent fertilizer reserves. When fertilizer supply disappears, the only backup is last season's stockpile. And those stockpiles are being drawn down right now. And here is the number, the one that should make everyone watching this pause. The United Nations World Food Program published a formal warning on March 19, 2026. Their analysis, using pre-crisis population data and modeled oil price shocks, found that if this conflict does not end by the middle of 2026, if oil prices stay above $100 a barrel, approximately 45 million more people worldwide could fall into acute food insecurity. Acute food insecurity means unable to feed themselves adequately. It means children going without meals. It means adults choosing between paying for fuel to get to work or buying food for dinner. Of those 45 million, the WFP's own regional breakdown confirms 17.7 million are in East and Southern Africa alone. A further increase of 21% in food insecure people is projected for West and Central Africa. That is a continent-wide humanitarian emergency being generated in real time by a war between three countries, none of which are in Africa. Carl Scow, the WFP's deputy executive director, said in his statement, "If this conflict continues, it will send shockwaves across the globe, and families who already cannot afford their next meal will be hit the hardest. Without an adequately funded humanitarian response, it could spell catastrophe for millions already on the edge." 45 million people. One war. 0 votes. A war Africa did not start, did not vote for, cannot stop, and is paying for with hunger, with collapsed currencies, with fertilizer that is not arriving in time for the planting season that is happening right now. This is the story the news is not telling, and Frenzy Facts will keep telling it. If this video moved you, share it. Let one more person know what is happening. Subscribe for what comes next in this series. This is Frenzy Facts, where the world gets explained.